Gerald, we got to wind the clock backwards 16 times and type a whole bunch of digits into our phones, and then we can get back to our normal recording night on Sundays.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast, where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. Gerald is here with you, and over on the other side is my brother, stuck in a time loop, in a closet, wearing a Neil Breen t-shirt he cannot escape. Nicholas, how are you, buddy?
I'm disappointed in your species. The human species.
Is that a Neil Breen joke? I don't.
It is a Neil Breen joke. Go over to So Wizards, the most targeted advertising of all time, ladies and gentlemen. I've got my written, directed, and craft services by Neil Breen T-shirt from the So Wizard T-shirt shop. Literally,
okay. Right.
They put it on the store, and Joey tagged me on Facebook because he knows I'm probably the only person who would ever buy it. But I immediately clicked the link and hit purchase.
Hey, you know you're a fan when they're like making merch like specifically for one person, which is you.
Literally the most targeted advertising of all time. I'll take it. I love it. What's up, baby? How you doing?
I love that, man. I'm good, brother. Listen. Listeners of the show, it's going to be a little different this week, a little different next week. It's the Halloween season. It's a spooky time of year. We don't normally look this scary. It's because it's October. But this week and next week, our patrons selected, I'm going to use a loose air quotes for horror movies, at least for this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, are we starting the spooky season next week? Is that like, are we just going to do the spooky thing starting next week? Or what?
Oh, my God. So horror films were chosen for us by our patrons, and lucky, wouldn't you know it, old man Brad got the first spin, and he chose a film for us from this year, actually, that just came out not even a month ago, and it hit streaming a couple weeks ago for $7. He owes me a lot of money for doing this week's episode, but it's called Things Will Be Different, which is actually what I say to myself every time we log on to the podcast, Nick. I'm like, tonight it'll be different.
This week we're going to have a good cold open, and then
it's not.
The problem is we have the 80s champ in here for the movie draft, which actually is coming out. If you're a patron, you probably already heard it. Yeah. But the regular audience, you haven't heard it yet. But Ledbetter comes in here, grand slam out of the park, cold open, making us look like chumps.
Oh my
more
God.
so than we already do. And we come in here just week after week and just lay a giant turd for you. So we can't.
It's our show. We can't do it. Yeah. We just need to have guest hosts do the cold opens.
Our good friend Brad, Brad, who we love, Brad, who we adore. He was on the show when G was off in his break and everything like that. Love Brad. Lover of the trashiest trash to-be movies. I'm just gonna throw some titles at you here, Gerald. These are movies.
Go ahead.
They might or might not be to-be movies, but they probably exist. The Coffee Cup Death Massacre.
He loves that one.
The Sunglass Massacre. I just have massacre in my head for whatever reason. Lover of the trashiest trash garbage horror on the planet gets the chance to submit a horror movie for us to watch for the Horror Guys show.
Yeah.
And he gives us a supernatural, not even supernatural. It gives us a sci-fi
time travel
thriller.
Tender sibling story of reflection and loneliness. I mean, I don't, that's what gets me with Brad. And I know he's going to listen to this because he chose the episode and he loves this movie. And we'll get into our thoughts on the movie. But Brad, this dude every day is checking in a horror movie on Letterboxd. I mean, all he does is watch horror movies. And I'm talking about slashers, vampires, all kinds of things. I'll give you my
theory. You want my theory?
He had a shot, man.
No, so you can go on IMDb right now, and you can go on Wikipedia for this movie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it says in the genres for this movie on these different platforms that can be edited by fans and users. Mm-hmm. It says horror as the genre. So here's what I think. I think Brad liked this movie, wanted us to watch it. So he went to Wikipedia and IMDb and he just edited the genre and was like, oh, it's also a horror movie. So he could justify putting it into the list for us to pick it as a horror movie.
You know what? On Letterboxd it is too. It's sci-fi, horror, thriller in that order on Letterboxd.
On what planet?
I don't know. Let's talk about it when we get there, though. Let's hold on. Let's talk about it when we get to the review. But I'm with you there, and I'm the horror guy, so I'm pretty liberal when it comes to whether something's horror or not. And
I'm waiting, for one
know.
thing, and I know we haven't gotten into the movie yet. We'll talk about it when we get into our review a little bit more. But I'm waiting. I'm like, there's got to be just one random, weird, gory, crazy, nasty shot of something that happens to get this on the very, very fringes, the very cusp of what a horror movie even pretends to be.
I'm literally baffled. I need to look into it a little further. I'm literally baffled as to how people in the industry are calling this a horror movie. But we will get into our discussion of things will be different here shortly. Nick, let's talk about some movie news, man. Some stuff that came out in the last few weeks as we spill the peas this week.
Oh, no, not the peas. Not the peas. Ah! Ah!
Man, I love that sound drop. I need to make that my ringtone, actually.
You should.
Now, we're talking about horror, Nick, okay, and what we may or may not be talking about tonight in our opinion. But how about this, buddy? Christopher Nolan has announced that his next movie, or actually he hasn't announced it, it's rumored to be a period horror film that takes place in the 1920s with vampires. It is confirmed that whatever it is going to be starring Tom Holland and Matt Damon. Now, do you remember when you and I reviewed Oppenheimer and we had one big question? I don't remember who it was, probably Julio or something like that. And they asked what we wanted to see Nolan do next. And I told you then, over a year ago, horror. Do you think you heard our podcast episode? That's my question to you. Actually, play the sound drop. I got one big question.
Okay, wait, hang on a second.
Yeah, play it.
Jesus Christ, you can't be throwing. Play this sound.
You got to be ready. You got to be ready.
Play this sound drop. God.
Hot key.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
My question to you is, did Christopher Nolan listen to that episode and then go hunt for a horror script? What do you think?
Now, first of all, I just want to caveat, it couldn't have been Julio asking us one big question because there was nothing about the Flash in that question.
I think it was Jason. You might be right, actually. Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, of course, Christopher Nolan heard it. Chris, we're big fans.
You're doing great things, Chris. Keep at it, man.
Things.
You are really making a name.
Now,
for yourself.
I still haven't watched Tenet because I wasn't going to go to a theater at the height of COVID, and but
really the only Nolan movie I don't like is Tenet. I don't know. There's
Gerald. You want him to not listen anymore? He's going to hit unsubscribe if you don't stop it. You got to stop.
No,
okay, you got to knock it off. Stop it.
I'm going to give Tenet another chance, Chris. I'm sorry. What do you think about this news, though? Because I think it's interesting to ask you that because you don't like horror typically. I mean, you might see a movie that is horror and you might like it, but you're not seeking it out. So, Christopher Nolan, obviously one of the great living filmmakers. We both loved Oppenheimer, a lot of movies in his catalog that we both love. Would you be excited for something like this, a 1920s vampire horror flick directed by Christopher Nolan?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why, because Nolan, and I'm sorry to steal your thunder here, but Nolan's not a horror guy, okay? He's not a horror director, okay? So he's not making all these horror movies that are going to play to the normal kind of horror movie tropes that normal horror movies. One of the biggest reasons I just dislike horror movies in general is because I really dislike horror movie tropes. I think a lot of them are really, really played out. I do appreciate when movies kind of buck against them. And really appreciate that, and not to say that you can't play a riff on a normal, like the normal, sing the same old song, as it were, in terms of a horror movie, with all that kind of stuff. But Nolan's not a horror director; he's just a director who directs kind of all over the place. He's directed in a ton of different genres, and has proven himself adept at making pretty much everything. So, I mean, you're going to get something. You're not just gonna get a normal silly old blood and guts vampire movie. Now, it's Christopher Nolan, so we know he's so steadfastly determined to make everything so realistic. He's gonna actually have real vampires in the film. He's gonna actually turn people into vampires for the movie. Got to get that practical stuff in there. I want you to really bite them and really suck their blood and turn them into vampires. Like, that's the level of realism we're going for here.
Well, it is going to be hyper realistic, though. You're right. I mean,
you're gonna get a different kind. It's not gonna just be a blood and guts. So 90-minute, some blood splashes here. The plot's barely there. The actors are all incredibly no name and have no discernible talent whatsoever.
Yeah.
Don't come at me, horror people. I know some, horror actors are good and stuff like that, but
think about that. Like, bombastic Hans Zimmer score and the like frantic editing. And I'm really excited about Nosferatu later this year from Robert Eggers, and it kind of gives me that kind of vibe. Like, it would be obviously more colorful than Eggers shoots his films, tend to be a lot of grays and monotone colors, but I just think it's going to be an epic, sweeping picture with horror stuff in it, which is kind of what you're saying too.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm down for that news, like, big time. Like, that's going to be. I wouldn't, the Nosferatu stuff, obviously, because I love Nosferatu. We've talked about that a couple times in the past few weeks on the show, obviously. But
coming up.
It takes a lot for me to actually get interested in a horror movie. When you get an auteur, dare I use the word, but when you get somebody like a Christopher Nolan who's going to get behind the camera and make a horror movie, okay, I'm interested.
Yeah, me too. So to wrap up on that, it has been confirmed that it is going to be starring Matt Damon and Tom Holland, and it's going to come out in July of 2026. So we have a little less than 2 years to go before we see this thing. It's going to be filmed on 70mm IMAX, which of course Nolan is known to do. So it's going to be a big deal, whatever it turns out to be. But I was extremely excited about this, and as soon as I saw it a few days ago, I was like, oh my God. Me and Nick, we fucking talked about that a year and a half ago. That's crazy. So there you go. Christopher Nolan doing horror.
Chris, the check, just, send it to Gerald. We'll split it. We don't.
Just give me a credit, man.
5% of the box office gross. We don't need anything crazy here, okay? We don't need like $80 million like Downey to star in the Avengers or whatever. Just 5% of box office. We're fine.
Meager. Nothing crazy. Look, man, I don't mean to be throwing all this horror at you, but I know you're a huge fan of I think it was 2000, actually. I was going to say 99, but I think it was 2000's American Psycho, starring Christian Bale.
Good movie.
Luca Guadagnino, who I know you are also a fan of, who did Challengers this year that we both loved, he is going to be directing a reimagining. He made a point to not say remake of American Psycho. Not sure who's going to be starring in it. It's going to be a reimagining of the book written by Bret Easton Ellis. Because I think American Psycho is perfect. Like, that's a 10 out of 10 movie. It just gets better with age. It's just hard to really beat it. What do you think the angle is here? Are you excited about something like that? Guadagnino taking on American Psycho? Or are you one of those people who's like, we don't need this?
I just can't wait for the future countdown type podcasts that do lists where they rank stuff, where someone like a Wayne Aruzu will pick it as one of his favorite remakes, even though it's not a remake. It's just going to be a new adaptation of the book. And then I get, like, what did this happen with recently? It happened with something like there's people that consider Villeneuve's Dune to be a remake. Because there was another Dune movie. It's like, no, it's just another adaptation of the novel. It's not a remake just because there was another movie based on the same property before. It's a remake if they took the old movie script and zhuzhed it up and then, kick it out there as a thing.
So is that the distinguishing factor for you then, in your opinion, is if it's based on the previous movie script as opposed to based on the source material?
Yeah, because that's remaking the movie. If you take the original script and you do a rewrite to it and update it for modern times or whatever other kind of spin you want to give it to it, that's a remake. If you're taking a novel and you're just doing a new adaptation of it, it's not a remake of the other film adaptation. Like, I'm sorry, but it's not. It was like this too. People kept saying this about it, like, oh, they're remaking the TV movie. No, they're not. They're adapting it, the book, like, into a thing. I love Guadagnino. I love American Psycho. I do love the Christian Bale version. I'll be interested to see what more Guadagnino does with it, because it's kind of this very weird satire about, like, that kind of Wall Street corporate culture sort of thing in there. Like, I'll be interested to see what they do with it in a 2024 or whenever it gets made, 2025, 2026. I'll be interested to see what he does with it in that lens. Obviously, I love Challengers from this year. Like, I'm a huge Guadagnino fan, so I'm going to be seated day one for that. Like, that's going to be interesting, but I don't know. Because I don't think that the original novel. I think that the movie changes a lot from the original novel.
I've never read the novel. I've never read it.
Yeah, but that's my understanding, is that it did change quite a bit. So there's and even if here's the thing, even if it didn't, it's an adaptation. There's room in there to completely take it in. Maybe you got a completely different riff on it, you know?
I've just seen a lot of people, even personal friends of mine online, just like, why do we need this? We don't need this. American Psycho is perfect. Why are they touching it?
Have better friends, number one.
And I get the sentiment, but at the same time, if it's a movie that you love, like American Psycho in this case, and it's a filmmaker that you know is going to do something different with it just because of his resume and because of his kind of like what we were just talking about Nolan. I mean, you're telling me if Nolan said, I'm going to reinvent American Psycho, you wouldn't be excited about that? I mean, of course you would be, because it's going to be material that you're familiar with, but it's going to be told visually in a much different, more striking way. It's not going to take anything away from the 2000 film, but I think Guadagnino has a distinctive style, and he often, and I mean every single movie of his that I love, Call Me By Your Name, Challenger, Suspiria, Bones and All, I mean, all of his movies are extremely character-based. Like, they're very, very centered on their main characters. And you have Patrick Bateman, yes, but what other characters do we really get depth into in that film? None. So I think he's going to have Patrick Bateman in the movie, obviously, probably the star of the movie, whoever they end up casting in that role. But I think he's going to spend a lot more time on some of these supporting characters in the book that didn't get a lot of screen time, or at least a lot of depth in the original film. So that's what I'm excited about. I think it's going to be a character-driven piece with that American Psycho familiarity to it, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always going to be here for everything. I'm not the person that decries any, even if it was a remake of the movie. Like, I don't decry any of these kinds of things. Like, I'm always here for it. Let a new filmmaker give a new spin on it. Like, let a new filmmaker, maybe they see it in a completely different light. Like, there's all these different ideas in the novel that they really loved that really didn't get explored in the Christian Bale version that maybe they want to go into. You know, like, I'm all for that. I'm all for that, because you never know what kind of great thing's going to come out of it. Like, the risk that you run, obviously, if you're Guadagnino, is you got to make something good. Like, you better have something good. You better have a good approach to it, because it whether it's a remake of it or not, or a new adaptation or whatever, people are going to compare it back to that original movie. And that movie it's a great movie, and it's entrenched its place in cinema history. So if you're going to make something and you're going to readapt that novel into something else, you got to make something that stands up alongside the Christian Bale version and is as iconic. Like, it can't just be something that's like, you go and watch it, and then, like, you walk out of the theater. It's kind of like, we've talked about this, I know, with the Disney live action remakes, but every time you leave a theater for those live action remakes, you walk out and you shrug and you're like, well, I like the animated one better, and you'll never watch the live action one again.
Right. It's got to be something.
That's the death knell of this movie.
Yeah.
You don't want that reaction to this movie. You need to have a new interpretation of it that's going to give an audience a different way to view this material, all that kind of thing. Because it's Guadagnino, and because I know it's in good hands, I'm there. I'm going to trust that.
So let me ask you about this one. I only got a couple more.
Well, hang on. What you got to.
You could ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
Well, this is just
if you're going to ask me something, you know, we got the sound drop for you can't kill it. You can't take it away from us. Your listeners, don't let him take it away.
No, we've already played it 3 times in the last 20 minutes. What are you talking about? It's the most used sound drop in podcasting right now. I'm a big fan of Clint Eastwood as a filmmaker, as an icon in Hollywood. The guy's in his 90s. I think he's 91 years old right now, something like that. He just directed a new film that's going to be coming out on November 1st. It's called Juror Number 2. First of all, do you know anything about this?
No.
Okay. I should have sent you the trailer. It is an amazing trailer. One of the best cut trailers I've seen in a long time, and I watch a lot of fucking movie trailers. But I'll just give you a real quick synopsis of what the film is about. It's a thriller. It's a mystery. And it's about a guy who gets in a car accident in a bad storm one night. He runs over something. He thinks it's an animal, whatever. Cut to, like, 2 years later, there's a murder trial going on, and he's on the jury. And the guy that's being tried for murder, the juror that we see in the opening finds out that what he ran over was actually the victim.
Oh.
So he accidentally killed that person by a hit and run, not even knowing it. And he's a juror on the trial of the person that's now being accused of the murder.
Oh.
So that's the premise of the film, which I think is a phenomenal premise. Stars Nicholas Hoult, who's a great young actor I love.
Love him.
And the story here is that juror number 2 was going to go straight to streaming from Warner Brothers. Eastwood's been in business with them for a long time, decades. And Eastwood said, this is probably my last film. Like, I'm a cinema guy. Can we put this in theaters? Warner Brothers agreed to put it in theaters. They're only going to put it in 50 theaters on November 1st for a limited release, and then it's going to go to streaming. Now, I want to ask your opinion, and then I'm going to tell you what I think. This is Clint Eastwood, man. This is a Hollywood like icon, like a pillar of old Hollywood, in my opinion, at least that's currently alive. And they're treating his probably last feature film this way. When you hear that, what do you think? I mean, what comes to mind when you hear me tell you that? Limited release for probably a couple weeks, and then it gets dumped on streaming.
I mean, what I will say is I don't think agree with everything you said about Eastwood in terms of like his legacy, literally 60, 70 year legacy in cinema, like insane. You know, I'll agree with you as far as all that stuff is concerned, but let's not kid ourselves and think that Eastwood movies are like barn burners at the box office. They're not blowing the doors off the box office, pulling in $1 billion in ticket sales or anything like that. I think most of them probably do reasonably okay. Like, I mean, I don't think he really has super, super high budgets for his movies either or anything like that. But, you know, I think that I get it from a business sense. Like, some people are probably just straight up outraged. Like, it wouldn't matter what he was making or whatever. They'd want like a full 5,000 plus screen theatrical rollout. Like literally give him the whole thing. I spend too much time in wrestling Twitter dealing with that toxic bunch of assholes. I don't even want to guess what like film Twitter's saying about it, and like how outraged film Twitter is, unless they can't get over the fact that he's a conservative. But there's that mix to play in there too.
But I just think it's disrespectful to his legacy. I mean, that's really what I think. I think, and it sucks too because it looks like a great movie. Like before this whole thing with the rollout kind of was announced early in the year, I watched a lot of pundits that do like Oscar predictions and stuff. And on paper, you're like Clint Eastwood. I mean, 91 years old, the last film he's ever going to direct. On top of that, it's probably going to be a good film, at least based on what we've seen so far. Nicholas Holt's a great actor. I mean, and then here we go. It's not going to get a release. Nobody's going to be able to see it, at least not until it's on streaming. I just think it's disrespectful. I mean, I'm a fan of his, so I'm probably biased. I love the majority of his films that he directs.
I mean, I'm a fan of his too. Like, I get you there.
Yeah. So
I don't feel like it's as disrespectful as all that because, you know, like I said, I mean, Scorsese's not blowing the doors off the box office. What was the budget of this movie? Probably, I don't know, say $40 million, something like that. You know, I mean, I would now maybe not 50, like give him something a little bit more, like slightly wider, maybe. But I mean, I get it from that practical sense too, of like you don't want to cart the movie out into like 6,000 screens or whatever, and you know, because you got to pay money for all that stuff, don't you? I think they do.
Yeah, they do.
You know, like you can't just do all that kind of stuff and shove it out there to everything because it's just not going to be. It's not going to be like people are going to be going out in droves of like, oh my God, it's Eastwood's last movie, and literally everybody and their mother's got to go. If you gave it even a normal release, it would probably just do decent. Like it probably wouldn't. Like I said, it probably wouldn't like light the box office on fire. Like, oh my God, or whatever. You know.
Well, I got one for you to wrap up Spill the Peas this week. Buddy, Denis Villeneuve says that Dune Messiah is going to have more worms. Nicholas, over to you.
And I replied to you on Twitter when you sent me this. I replied, okay, and is it going to suck less?
Any first-time listeners, Dune Part 2 is in the running for my best movie of the year, and Nick hates it.
It sucks.
So
terrible.
We have a 2024 ongoing contention over.
I
Dune
get
Part
what
2.
I get what you're doing. Okay, I understand that you're adding the scores for Dune Part 1 and Part 2 together, but only doing it out of 10, and that's how you're getting to that 10. That's how you're getting to that 10 out of 10. I get it. I understand.
All right, man.
I get it. I get
I
you.
don't know what I'm rating this movie we're talking about tonight, guys. That was Spill the Peas. A couple entertainment topics I wanted to bring up there. Nick, it's time to talk about the patron selected, the old man Brad selected quote horror. Unquote movie that he added on Wikipedia as a subgenre to get this topic. Things Will Be Different, directed by Michael Felker. I got to find my score.
Written and directed.
Written and directed by Michael Felker, who was an editor for the executive producers on this film that here, I got it right here. Okay. What we going to do, Nick? Things will be different. Now, what we do, guys, every week is we give our scores out of 10 for the main review, and we have not discussed it with each other yet. And then we talk about the film. It's what we call the early score reveal.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm going to score, and then I never score. It's not fair.
All right, brother, let's do it. Count us in, man. Count us in.
No.
All right, sounds good.
3, 2, 1, go. Oof.
Oh, wow.
Hey, there you go. There's a 10. If you add these two together and you only call it out of 10, then that's a 10 out of 10. Mine's a 4.
Nick's got a 4. I got a 6. So 6 out of 10 for me, a 4 out of 10 from Nick makes it a 5 overall out of 10 from the P's this week on Things Will Be Different. Let me look up what I was talking about real quick, Nick.
Are you going to look up the horror part of this movie? Because good luck. I don't know where you're going to find it.
I won't be able to find that. Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson are these guys that have directed a couple of these like cosmic kind of sci-fi horror adjacent films. Benson and Moorhead, and they did. Let me look real quick because
I don't know who that is.
Okay, so they did The Endless. They did Spring, Something in the Dirt, which came out last year, and they did some episodes of Moon Knight for Disney Plus this year as well. But they have this like, they do a lot of cosmic time, dealing with time and space, and like, so I saw a lot of that influences in this film. And when I saw they were executive producers on this film and that Brad had recommended it to us, I'm not mad at Brad, but what the fuck? We'll get into spoilers later, but to keep it spoiler free, you gave it a 4. Why don't you start us off, man? Why did this one miss for you?
And we got to get into spoilers before we can really talk about a lot of the reasons that
true.
this movie really, really missed for me. I think now this is a no-budge movie set in one location. Like it's an old farmhouse, like out in the middle of nowhere. This is very clearly like shot on like a shoestring budget. It's got a very, very, very small cast. So I don't view this the way I view other kinds of movies where I'm going to be more critical of certain aspects of it. Like I think the performances are fine. I don't think the performances are like blowing the doors off of anything, like where they didn't like floor me or blow me away. I think the performances are fine. I think where this movie really, really falls apart is on the page. I'll talk about that more because I got to get into some very specific things about this movie to why it didn't work with me. But it's just, it has a very, very heavy sci-fi concept that it does not explain it all. And that's okay. It's okay if you have a concept like that you don't explain in the movie necessarily. Okay. But you have to. I needed this to make more logical sense than it did. Mm-hmm. It didn't seem like the rules of, and I guess like from my understanding, reading plot synopses of this and stuff, like it's not really time travel per se. It's more of like an alternate reality or ultimate dimension or something like that. However that works necessarily, I don't know. Neither does the movie, because the movie doesn't bother telling you how any of this stuff works remotely whatsoever. I've got my theories on some of the different goings on that happen in the movie that, like I said, obviously we have to wait until spoilers before we can even touch them. But it just on the page, this does not work for me. This conceptually, I'm going to say this, G, and I want you to get in here, but conceptually, I love this movie. I love heady, dimensional, time travel-y, like weird, wibbly-wobbly stuff like this. I love this kind of stuff. It's my bread and butter. I love it. You don't got to do much to impress me with this, but you at least have to give me a little bit, like, it's like you didn't even give me a bone to chew on with like a little bit of meat on it. Like, you literally gave me a piece of cardboard that you drew a bone onto, and I'm chewing on it, and I know it's cardboard and it doesn't taste good. Like, it's just it's such a good concept, but I feel like it's so underbaked. I feel like it's so underdeveloped, and I feel like that really lets it down.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you for the most part. I mean, I didn't hate this thing. I gave it a 6. I would mildly, extremely mildly recommend it to anybody.
It's weird
that
for me
likes...
too, because I give it a 4 because I really dislike a couple aspects, but I don't have the venom for this. Like I said, this is a different kind of movie than a Dune, where I just and plus there's some hyperbole in there. Don't tell Gerald that, but
Sure, no, I get it.
I don't hate it with a 4. I want to set that expectation. I don't hate it, but
I get into this. I know I get into this thing too, where I want to be careful, where I don't want to review like what I think they should have done. I want to just review what I saw, and so that's tough. But there's a couple things in this movie which we'll get more detailed on in the spoiler side, where it's like, why didn't we spend a little more time cultivating these reveals that we get later in the film? You know what I mean?
Right.
And in my opinion, they just don't spend enough time on that backstory for these characters, because obviously if we don't care about this brother and sister, then none of it's going to work. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
but
yeah.
I do agree with you what you were saying. So the synopsis on Letterboxd says, in order to escape the police after a robbery, 2 estranged siblings lay low in a metaphysical farmhouse that hides them away in a different time. And there they reckon with the mysterious force that pushes their familial bonds to unnatural breaking points. That premise, and when I watched the trailer was a bit underwhelming, but that just kind of idea and general concept is fascinating.
I love it conceptually. I really love the concept of it.
Like on paper, it just sounds like a really awesome premise. And there's parts of this movie that I did think were awesome, but this movie is the definition of copyright Dan Brennick. It's fine. Like, I mean, I'm never going to rewatch it.
You're not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I mean, it's okay. It's okay. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's just like it exists. You know what I mean? And I know Brad's a fan of it, and I'm glad he pitched it to us. I just wish I had liked it more. And the whole horror tag thing, we'll get into on the other side of spoilers, too. I know producer Dan's hanging out in the chat. He just popped in here. Run the goddamn promo, Dan, and then we're going to figure out why this is a horror movie when we get back into spoilers, for Things Will Be Different.
Spoiler alert. No, we won't.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to discuss spoilery for Things Will Be Different, the 2024 Michael Felker film. This is his directorial debut. He also wrote it. And we will be spoiling the hell out of this thing. And there are a lot of plot points that are quote-unquote surprises when you watch this film. So if you don't want to be spoiled, please stop listening.
Are there? Are there?
They're intended to be, I should say. They're intended to be surprises.
Uh-huh.
Nick, before we go anywhere else, why is this being blanketly categorized as a horror movie? What the hell am I missing here?
There's one shot of a skeleton in it. Like
is that it?
Like a dead body that's decomposed into a partially muscled skeleton. That's the only thing that's even remotely horror adjacent in this entire movie.
I guess if they're like maybe trying to, like, the haunted house kind of tactic, like the farmhouse is kind of creepy. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. I texted Brad when I watched it, and I said, Brad, you were supposed to pitch a horror movie to us. Why did you pitch this sweet brother-sister like bonding movie? What the hell's going on?
Mystifying that this is classified as a horror movie. There is nothing even remotely horror-like about this movie at all.
So interject here. Tell me if I get this right, and then let's kind of talk about it a little bit. So this brother and sister, they both need money for different reasons, whatever. So they decide to, I don't know if it's a bank or whatever, but they rob all this money.
They steal a bunch of money from ?
Yeah, exactly. So they have a duffel bag, $100,000 or whatever it is, and they're on the run from the cops on foot, by the way. And they're running through the woods. The cops are on their heels, whatever. So the brother let's find out what their names are real quick so I can refer. Joe and Sydney.
Yep.
So the brother Joe had a friend that we never meet that gave him a notebook. And it had a bunch of weird kind of instructions in it and notes or whatever. And she said, I have this farmhouse. take this notebook, go to the farmhouse. It'll tell you what you need to do to elude the police or whatever. So him and his sister, Sydney, get to this reclusive farmhouse. And to make a long story short, they end up using the notebook from the friend to enter into this closet, basically, or dark room, whatever. And once they enter through there by following these commands of changing all the grandfather clocks and all this other shit they have to do, they are transported, I guess, to a different time.
Place. Somewhere. We don't know.
Place,
it doesn't
something,
really tell
yeah.
us. There's nothing.
It's not
there's
where
no
they were.
Identifier of where or when it is, except for the fact that the decor in the house is probably a little 80s, 90s.
I was going to tell you, it looked a little old to me. I was even going to say 60s or 70s.
No,
it did look a
because
little dated.
The
though.
TV is like one of those big plastic black Magnavoxes, but not like
With
if it was the
VCR?
60s or 70s, it would be one of those big giant wood cabinet TVs.
You're right. They had the VCR too.
So
didn't
it
they?
was
'Cause she
like
was watching those
I would
tapes.
say probably like if you wanted to set it in a time frame, it's probably 90s, just because of that. Like think of the big plastic shells, black CRT TVs.
You're right.
That's what it was. It was like, so you're probably talking 90s at the latest. And yeah,
So-
there's VHS players in it, but there's CD
Right, and
players
I forgot
in
about
it too.
that. You're right. That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that
so-
stuff. You're right. It's probably 80s now that you're saying that
If it's
stuff.
80s, is it
right.
really going to be CDs though?
I mean, I had a CD player in there. I was like 88 or 89. But
Okay,
yeah.
so it's the very
could be
late
90s.
80s, or it's in the
It's
90s.
December of 1989. It came out when Nine Inch Nails released their album.
Dan Brennick was like 5 months old.
Brad would love that joke. It's a Nine Inch Nails joke. So anyway, so they escape the cops, and they're in this time and space, whatever, kind of just a different dimension, if you will. And they have 2 weeks where they're going to lay low in this other time so that the cops, I guess, stop looking for them, or the trail is cold or whatever, and then they'll go back to the present day. Well, what ends up happening is they find out they can't go, or the people that are kind of controlling the time travel or space-time travel won't let them go back. And they're essentially saying, we're going to kill you because you're not supposed to be here. You're going to mess up space-time if we leave you here, so we have to kill you. And they've done that to other people that have shown up there as well, and we find that out later. You mentioned the skeleton or whatever, which turns out to be his friend that had given him the book, we find out. And so I want to ask you about the logic that you mentioned, because I guess what you're supposed to do with a movie like this, and I get it, and I feel almost bad even like critiquing it, is that it's fucking time travel. Like, just like Back to the Future. Like, you can't explain any of it. None of it is real. None of it happens. You know what I mean? At least not for the next couple hundred years.
You just have to accept that the most ridiculous, convoluted process possible to activate it. Like, you got to run around the house and turn all the grandfather clocks around a bunch of different ways and times, and like all this different stuff, and then you have to go into this closet and punch these numbers into a phone and say very specific things and then hang it up without, like, it's the most ridiculous, convoluted bunch of nonsense like ever possible. Hey guys, like, I know what was the 80s time totally killer. Like, all you have to do is just have a magic tanning booth or whatever. No, that was Lisa Frank, whatever. Doesn't matter. You could just have a magic thing that does a thing, and you don't have to explain. Like, you don't have to make it this convoluted. That's one, okay, but.
Well, I wanted to ask you about the tape
You
recorder
just have to
bullshit.
buy it, though. You just have to accept it as a fundamental function of this movie's universe, that there is a special space closet you can go into that will transport you into an alternate dimension or time. You just have to accept it, or otherwise,
Sounds legit.
listen, the rest of the movie will fall completely apart for you if you don't.
Right.
Okay, you have to at least just accept that. That's not what makes this movie a 4.
No. But I wanted to ask you specifically because this was one of those things where, like, when the movie ended, the credits were rolling, that I was kind of like, not upset, but I was just like confused that they didn't explain certain things. And by that, I mean the tape recorder stuff, because, I mean, maybe you understand it and you can help me. But so anyway, there's a safe, and there's a cassette player in the safe. And they get the code, they open the safe, and they're able to record from wherever they are they're able to record something, and then it instantaneously goes to the other time, and the puppet masters, if you will, of the whole thing can also record something and send it back to them right away, but it's on the same tape. So, and they never even put it back in the safe and got it back. So that whole thing, I was like, all right, well, they're going to explain this eventually. And then they never really did.
They never do.
I mean, do you get that, though? You know what? When you said it was a different dimension and not a different time, that kind of helped me a little bit because that makes a little more sense.
Well, it does. Like, it doesn't. Time. If you think about it from a time point of view, time doesn't make sense because there are things that happen in this movie where all of a sudden, like in one scene in the movie, like the safe just automatically immediately appears in the room where the closet is,
and the board with the notes on it too, where it said
rips,
keep out
like,
or whatever.
Yeah, they have the board. They have the closet nailed shut because they need them to stay in this place to kill this person that's going to come to the farm that they need to get rid of or whatever. She, at one point, is trying to break into the closet. She rips the board off the door. She turns around and looks back at the door. There's a brand new board there that, like she never ripped it off. You know, like literally, and this
Shit
happens
like that.
a few different times. So, like I said, you just have to buy that it's just like this otherworldly place where all this different stuff happens. It's frustrating because I think the biggest. And I want to segue into some of the things that I've really hit my craw about this movie, but the rules of it don't seem very consistent. It's like you said, at certain points they have to talk into the tape recorder and then put it back into the safe, and then when they take it back out of the safe, then it has a response on it.
That made sense to me.
Then they can basically use the tape recorder like a walkie-talkie to talk to whomever the person that makes no sense. Like it literally makes no sense.
And it was two different ways to use the same device. It was confusing to me.
Yeah, it gets to that point where even the logic that this movie is trying to hang all this stuff on gets stretched so thin at that point. And if they have my thing, G, is if they have this. We'll talk we'll get deep spoilers like as we get toward the end here and like spoil like the ending of the movie and like the kind of the twists and stuff that the movie throws at you.
Yeah.
But there's no consistent if they have such an amount of control, Gerald, that they can just make the safe appear in the room where the closet is, for instance, where she's ripping the boards off the wall. Why can't they just make a goddamn howitzer appear in the yard and blow the person away when the killer is coming up on the house? Like seems like the logic of the movie is that they have this almost immediate kind of there's scenes in the movie where when they show up in this alternate dimension, there's all this food in Tupperware containers perfectly labeled in the fridge. There's one scene where you'd see Joe go to the fridge and the fridge is empty, closes the fridge, reopens it, it's automatically full of food again.
Right.
Like the
scotch
cabinet's
in the
empty
cupboard
with the
and all
booze,
that.
and then they're big handles of Jack Daniels that they ripped the labels but you can clearly tell that's what bottle it is.
Whiskey or whatever, yeah.
Like seriously, like that's the kind of instantaneous control they have over this thing. But like I said, if they have that kind of instantaneous control, we don't understand why don't they have a more precise kind of control over this place where they, like I said, just summon in like a giant like missile battery on top of the house to blow up the person that's coming there to try to do
summon in like a professional assassin. Like, hey, dude, bam, shoot this guy.
Like any of that kind of stuff. But here's I want to get this out of the way because like this movie to me, there's a reason why this movie is a 4. I probably would have rated this movie higher than you if not for this one specific thing, Gerald. That's my BuzzFeed title for this episode too. This movie would be a great movie if not for this one thing.
Let's do it.
In the movie, there are several different scenes where this happens too. It's a hour 40 minutes. Like it's only 100-minute movie, give or take. So
102. Yeah.
In all these different scenes where like Sydney's pressing her brother to explain what's going on or how this different thing works or whatever, or even toward the end of the movie when Joe is facing against the puppet masters or whatever you want to call them that are running this whole thing. Mm-hmm. But then all like the characters will literally out loud say, I don't have time to explain it. It wouldn't make any sense if I explained it. Blah, blah, blah. I can't explain it. Blah, blah, blah. I can't explain it. Blah, blah, blah. I can't explain it. Literally, the film stops on a dime numerous times and has usually Sydney as a character, asking questions about what's happening in the movie, what's happening in the universe of this movie. And then the movie basically, audio audience, you're going to miss it, but they basically just take that and they just we're not going to tell you anything. You don't get to know anything. I just flipped off the camera if you were listening.
Yeah.
Like, the movie literally stops on a dime, and the dialogue of the characters is like, "Nah, we're not telling you shit. We're not telling you anything. You don't get to know anything." And it's like, don't sit here and insult my intelligence as an audience member that I can't get what you're going for, or I'm not going to get it if you try to explain it.
I wonder if they got it.
Or I'm not
wonder
going
if
to
they
buy
knew.
it. Or this is why I said it's so underbaked. It's so underdone. It's like you put that loaf of bread in the oven and you took it out when it was still dough and you're just gnawing on raw dough. Like,
I agree.
the idea, the concept is so great, but literally you have wholesale wastes of screen time in this movie where there are characters questioning what's happening in the world around them, and the screenwriter, well, the writer-director basically just says, yeah, fuck off. Literally, that happens like 3 or 4 times in this movie, and it pissed me off so bad every time. Don't waste my time with that. Don't be like, oh, we're not going to tell you. Like, what?
Yeah. I get it.
Another thing, either don't tell us at all, period.
Or don't point it out.
Or tell us, but don't put a scene in the movie where you're like, what's going on? And you're just like, no. Don't do that to me as an audience member, because I paid money to watch your goddamn movie. And you're basically just like piss off. I don't give a shit about what do you want? Who cares? Go away.
One thing I wanted to say too about Sydney's character in particular, I really loved her performance. It was Riley Dandy is her name, which is not an actress I was familiar with prior to this. She looked familiar to me, but I'm not sure, maybe TV or something, I don't know. But I thought she did really well in this, as did Adam David Thompson. I thought they both had really good performances, but to their credit, without those performances, this movie would be shit, because they really had to work with minimal in terms of screenwriting, in my opinion, which is kind of what you're saying too. But with her character, with Sydney's character in particular, there's a third act swerve that was so out of place that was like a plot twist that would have been interesting and would have been impactful. This is what I was talking about pre-spoilers, by the way. Had they spent more time, aside from just a phone call here and there with her brother, on Sydney's backstory with her daughter, because it's mentioned, and like she wants to get back to her, and all this shit, and he talks about his niece, and it's mentioned throughout the movie, and we have that one phone call with her emotional about wanting to, that's why she's trying to steal the money in the beginning, is because for her daughter and whatever. But that's it. It's just like a couple comments, and then huge spoilers, by the way, guys. And then in the third act of this film, the puppet masters say to Joe and Sydney, all right, we'll let you stay. We won't kill you. We'll let you stay in this space-time continuum, purgatory, wherever you are, until an unforeseen visitor comes that we don't want there. And when they come there, if you kill them, we will send you back to your present day.
Yep.
The only catch is you don't know if it's going to be tomorrow. You don't know if it's going to be a month from now, a year from now, a decade from now. You don't know, but they're coming, and when they come, you need to take them out. So they basically spend a year, and it shows like different things. And there's one really cool shot, by the way, a shout out to the director, where he does this 360 pan, and the seasons all change, and it's like day and night, and it's like, but this
film shot really well too.
Pan.
I just want to just to that point, this film is shot really, really well. I mean, again, this is set in one location, just in a farmhouse, and like this kind of remote area, but they shot the hell out of this. It looks really, really great.
I agree. Technically, it's great. Performances is great. It's just the story is just weird. But anyway, so a year goes by. Turns out this intruder or whatever does come, and spoilers, it ends up being her daughter. Age, I don't know, what would you say, like mid-20s,
somewhere
maybe?
in the 20s, probably.
Yeah, and she was, I think they mentioned that she was maybe 10 initially, so I don't know what that means.
No, we'll talk about that when we talk about the ending of the movie, because
yeah, right, because that's I thought the ending was actually kind of cool. It was just the payoff was like literally, it was like expecting to get $1,000 and you got a quarter. I mean, it was cool, but it was like, so unearned, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah, you're
again,
right.
had we spent
By the
more
time we get there, it's like, but
Yeah.
wait, but there's all this stuff you didn't bother to really set up to
Exactly.
get to that point. So by
Had
the time
it
we
in-
get there, we don't care.
Had it ended the way that it ended, with having more gravitas and more heft to make that more impactful, I mean, I think the ending was great. It was just missing so many components prior to it to make it better, to make it more impactful for the viewer. But anyway, it ends up being her daughter. So, they're fighting or whatever. The mask comes off and she sees it as her daughter aged, I don't know, 10 years or whatever it is. I don't know. But she knows it's her daughter. So she obviously can't kill the intruder because that's her daughter. She has a moral dilemma. I can't kill my kid. I'm, whatever. And Joe comes barging in to shoot the intruder, and Sydney, sacrifices herself so that her daughter doesn't get shot, and she ends up getting killed. Now, heavy spoilers, guys, but we could talk about some other stuff, Nick. But essentially, what happens is Joe is now, his sister's dead, and Joe's there in this continuum purgatory by himself. And he's talking to the puppet masters in this weird, like, control room or whatever. That's like they're just shadows in the distance.
It's like the weirdest.
It's the weirdest. It's like a Twilight Zone kind of
It's
thing.
like a 1950s telephone console looking
Mad
thing.
Men and I don't know. It's weird. So, but they're like, all right, dude. Well, you failed. So, the deal's the deal. We're going to kill you. Your sister's already dead, but we're going to kill you now. And he basically pleads with them, like, I can do it. I can figure it out. Please let us stay here. Don't kill me. And for some reason, again, unearned, these cold-blooded puppet masters who have been frying skeletons in the fucking basement are like, all right, go ahead. We'll let you do this. And then, to make a long story short, this goes through however many cycles it goes through. And the end of the movie is where the movie started, except this time Joe is, I don't know, what would you say, 80? I don't know. He's an old man.
He's so old that his sister doesn't recognize him anymore. I mean,
Right.
basically, essentially, the long and the short of it is that Joe is now stuck in a time loop where he's continually trying to save his sister over and over and over and over again, but he keeps failing, and he keeps trying to do it over and over and over again,
Right.
to the point where he's now so old that when she comes into the diner or whatever, that, again, I want to make this clear. They're on the run from the cops after they failed or screwed up a robbery somehow, and they stopped for breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay, but that not aside, like, the whole conceit of it is he's stuck in this time loop, and when he gets to this point, she doesn't recognize him, and he says, kill me, you have to kill me, it's the only way that I'll save you, like, you have to kill me, because I can't, like, every time he tries to go through the time loop, it plays out the same way, she ends up dead.
And the giveaway for her was the bag of money, but also they had matching tattoos.
The matching
on their wrists.
tattoos, yep.
And that was when she saw that. Oh, that's my brother's tattoo. And then she kind of realized, and that's when he's like, "You need to kill me. I can't keep doing this over and over again. I can't save you.
Yeah.
Go be with whatever the daughter's name was. Go be with her, Steph." I mean, do you get what I'm saying though? Is like, I feel like, because I think we both like admire this movie. Like, it's conceptually, it's awesome, and it was shot very well. The performances are great. It had a lot of really good things kind of in the crock pot, you know what I mean? But it just didn't, they forgot to turn it on. Do you know what I mean? It's all just kind of sitting there,
You're gonna make
uncooked.
a beautiful, you're gonna make a beautiful braised short rib. You threw all the ingredients in there, you seared them off, you put all the ingredients in the French the pot, the Dutch oven. That's what I'm thinking of. The French. What?
Wait, what?
I had beef bourguignon on my mind for some reason.
Yeah, you did.
And then they shove it in the oven. But you're right. They forget to turn it on. So you take it out of the oven, take a bite. It's like, oh shit, this still isn't cooked.
I didn't cook this. Yeah.
Like, it's great conceptually, because I love that concept of he's stuck in this time loop, and like, so he shows back up before the beginning of the time loop, kills his past self in the woods and throws him in the lake,
Right.
and then goes to the diner. That's how it starts over every time. And then the new version of him goes to the diner to meet the sister, and then they go through the whole thing.
Start over again. Yeah.
All over and over and over again. And logically, the problem that I have with this, Gerald, and here's the thing that I wanted to get into, that really where this movie falls apart for me. Mm-hmm. The entire first time through this movie is not the first time. It is well That's why, because he says to her at the diner, he says, "Oh, Steph's got to be what, 10 by now?" And she corrects him. She's like, "No, she's 6." So he's already been in this time loop for a few years, or a few different times of going through this thing. He places 2 guns. Like, it's a really weird thing out of nowhere when they're preparing for this visitor to show up. He puts 2 guns in the most random weird places that doesn't make any sense. Like, he hides one out under a rock in the yard.
Right.
Which, that thing would not be working that way if it was like frozen and wet like that. I'm sorry, but that not aside. And then he hides one behind like the leg of a pew in like the church in the farmhouse.
But you're right as to why he did that, though.
Yeah, but he puts him there for a deliberate reason, because he's already been through this before. So he's trying to get the jump on this mystery person.
See, I didn't pick that up.
Here's the other thing about this with the mystery person too. It's the shittiest thing in history, because the second that this mystery person shows up in a cloak and a mask, you know it's going to be someone important to them, and we're not going to find out who it is until it's important for the plot to reveal it to us. They could just have her show up there and be all by herself. But did you not?
We hadn't seen her.
Oh yes, we
hadn't seen.
Yes, we had Gerald.
Oh, okay.
She's the friend that gives him the notebook in the first place. She has the watch, Gerald. Because she has that very prominent scar on her face too. They show that one quick shot of her with the watch on, sliding the notebook across the table to him, and we see a shot of her face, and we see a shot of the watch, and then we see the same watch smashed on the skeleton in the warehouse, which probably to me at least means that he was successful killing her at some point, but still somehow his sister still died. I don't know. That's not necessarily made clear or anything by the movie.
I don't know either. I thought that the skeleton I knew that was his friend that gave him the notebook, but I thought that the puppet masters killed her, because didn't they talk about like basically burning all their flesh off and burning them down to their core or something? They mentioned something about that's the way they kill people.
Know. But like she's the one who gives him the notebook, because again, she is like, the way that I interpreted this movie by the time I was finished watching it was, after he accidentally kills the sister, whatever. Steph traps him in the time loop, basically probably just to kill him over and over again or whatever. I don't necessarily know if that was her design, or if she like traps him in this thing so she can isolate him to be able to kill him or whatever. All that stuff notwithstanding, okay, that's all fine-ish. I'm fine with that.
Can I ask you a quick question? You don't have to play the sound drop. So Steph and the corpse with the watch are the same person.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
At least that's what I thought anyway. At least because they show that brief shot of her early in the movie, like when he's kind of explaining how he got the notebook, she slides the notebook across the table to him, and then you see the shot of her face with that, because she has a really prominent scar. And I think they gave her that because, well, maybe she gets it in one of the things where she goes through this thing with him.
So Joe just didn't know that was his niece then, I assume.
I would assume, yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Well, again, they've been estranged for like how long? Right. You know, they were estranged for how long and decided to come together to do this robbery. So he obviously hasn't been very close with Steph, so probably wouldn't really know all that much about her or anything like that. But like I said, I'm fine with that as the development, and I'm fine with me teasing that out if that's really the kind of plot that they were trying to kind of lay down for this movie. But here's my problem, Gerald. Again, I don't think this is not the first time he goes through the time loop, because he's doing all these very specific things to very specifically kind of stage things to try to come out ahead this time, to try to win this time, to try to defeat her this time.
Yeah.
And he clearly, by the end of the movie, he's exhausted. He's like, please kill me. You got to kill me. I can't save you. I've tried to save you so many times. I can't save you. Please kill me. I can't save you. But he remembers everything that happens, because he knows that he can't save her and that he's stuck in a time loop. And that's why he begs her, just leave the money, run away, go be with Steph. You don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah. Just kill me. Just kill me. Again, if he knows all this stuff, like, why is he so bad?
Why does he fail at it over and over?
Why is he so
again
bad
for
at
40
this? And why does he fail at it? And this is where I think this movie really could have played with this idea a little bit more. We could have seen snips of other attempts, Gerald. Like, what like, and I don't want to fall into the trap that you were saying. It's like I don't want to rewrite this movie here on the podcast. But what if we saw snips of other different attempts and we see things playing out differently one way or another, or we see, because all we're given is the one way that she dies, which is her jumping in front of her to protect her and try to save her. Now, you would think at some point in one of these attempts, he would be like, wait, why is she trying to protect this intruder? Let me figure out what's going on here. Like, we're not given any indication necessarily that the events play out any differently any of the other different times.
It's also kind of, I mean, you think inherently as you're trying to figure all this stuff out, and even hearing you talk right now, isn't it kind of a lose-lose for him anyway? Because if he kills his sister's daughter, she's not going to want to have anything to do with him anyway.
Well, and that's the thing, is
he just killed her kid.
The whole thing is she's there to kill the man who killed her family. Ostensibly meaning she's there to kill him because he killed her mother. Right. Like, so, like I said, I mean, from what we can tell, at least from what I've been able to glean out of it, is like all the events play out the same way each and every time that this loop happens. Like I said, why, like, what is it about this whole thing? Like, why not like 3 or 4 times through the loop does he not figure out, like, oh my God, it's her daughter or whatever, and like, you know, like, I got to get the mask off and show her, just yell to her in the yard, be like, Steph, we give up, let's talk this out, or like whatever. Like, I would have loved to see, and again, this was only an hour 40, give this another 10 minutes, give us just brief
just give me
glimpses
some
of some of the
daughter,
other loops to see, do the events always play out the same? Do they always play out a little bit differently? Do they keep changing? Does the goalpost keep getting moved forward? Because everything he tries to changes something else in the forward thing. Was Steph also aware of this, since she's the one that gave him the notebook to get him in there in the first place?
I wonder if it's because they wanted that just like holy shit bomb drop of an ending with him as the old man, that they didn't want to really reveal to us that it was. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because like I said, I did like the ending. But then that ending also wouldn't have been as impactful had we seen multiple loops. I don't know. That's why I'm saying this movie's frustrating,
anyway,
because
I don't get enough of the development between these characters, and it's definitely not of the daughter, for me to be that invested in this whole thing. And I think maybe you take that another 10 minutes and you give me snips of the other loops of him trying and failing, or you give me, I don't know, like, what if there was a midway through the movie, like halfway through, all of a sudden Sydney dies, and then he's like, all of a sudden he wakes up at that camp in the woods, and like the whole thing starts over, or like all of a sudden he's back in the diner and he doesn't know what happened because maybe the controllers gave him something. I don't know. There's a million different things you could have done, but they don't bother answering any questions. They don't bother giving you any information about how any of it works. Do all the loops play out the same? Do they not play out the same? All these kinds of different things. Like, we don't know why he's failed all these different times. We just know that he has.
I think, and hearing us talk about it, you guys may think so too, listening at home, but I think it's just too convoluted, but at the same time, it's missing a lot.
I like that.
Weird,
I like movies that make me leave a theater, or leave the viewing in this case, because we watched it online. I like leaving a movie and having to think and having to fill in some gaps by myself. But I basically had to kind of like write the whole plot of this movie in my head once I saw like the reveal at the end and everything. And I kind of had to try to fill in for myself, well, how the hell did all these different loops work?
Yeah.
And why, like, what does he mean that she keeps getting killed? Like, I don't understand how she keeps getting killed, or whatever the case may be.
And also, I'll say it just moves really, really slow until you get to that last like.
Yeah, it spends a lot of time with like ponderous panning shots of this whole property and farmhouse and stuff.
Yeah, it's got a lot of like no dialogue shots of just.
I remember thinking that at one point in the movie, I was just like, this is not a long enough movie for you to just be having like these endless, long, ponderous shots of this stuff. And listen, I'm gonna be this guy too. Like, I'm sorry, but whatever that song was that they played like a bunch of times in the early part of the movie,
you could tell they had the rights. They had the rights for like
shit,
one
I hated
song.
that song. It was terrible. That song is not good, yo.
They had the
It
rights
is
for
not
one
good.
song, and they wore it out. Man, I
Ooh.
tell you, that CD had to be scratched by the time he ended up in the diner. At the
Favorite thing, I almost stood up out of my chair and applauded. They take the CD out of the CD player and snap it in half. I was like, yes!
Yeah. They should have put Pretty Hate Machine in there. It came out the same year, I think. One thing I want to say before we wrap up on this thing and get to our Mount Rushmore this week. So Michael Felker, first-time director here. He's the editor for Moorhead and Benson on those other films that I mentioned. And I think the film is edited flawlessly. I think it looks great. There's one shot that I did absolutely love in this movie. It's a wide shot. And when I say wide shot, I mean like it looks like it's like a half mile away from the subject in the frame, where you can see the farmhouse off to the left and you see just this barren field. It's like winter. And she's trying to escape, Sydney, and she's running across the field. And I guess you get to a barrier and you can't go any further without essentially bleeding out. And she starts like having nosebleeds and vomiting, blood and everything. And so that kind of tells us like, all right, they're trapped in this perimeter basically.
Yeah, they can't leave this place specifically. Yeah.
But that was such a great shot, I thought. You just had the really small kind of image of her off in the distance, and you could tell that she was just kind of stopped by, the restraints of this world that they were in.
Yeah.
But I think it was shot beautifully. I think conceptually, like we both said, it's a great concept. There was just a lot of things that just were not fleshed out from a backstory perspective. And Nick had a great point of, I get the reveal at the end, but there's just not enough time loop stuff in there for us to chew on. You know what I mean? It just is, and the plot swerves at the end were kind of weird, and it didn't fit with that kind of melancholic, slow burn kind of foundation that we had going up to that.
I have trouble rectifying the two kind of halves of this movie, where one half of it is like obviously Steph trying to get Joseph into this situation where she wants to kill the man that killed her mom. Like, I get that. Like, that's a whole different thing. And plus, the brother says it. But then there's this whole other thing of the people that are like behind this alternate time or alternate dimension, whatever the hell it is, that are controlling it, that stock it with food, like just literally stock it with food and booze, and like literally can change
Whiskey.
it on a dime and all that kind of stuff. But I don't understand how those, like, what is this just some random thing that again, there's just too many things in this film that are not even minimally answered, because again, there's too many scenes of, well, we're not going to tell you that, or we don't have time to discuss that, or we don't have time for whatever. But like,
But they did. They
Steph
didn't
just
spend time
stumble upon this at some point? Was like, aha, this is the perfect thing to kill him. Did she construct this world somehow?
Right.
But it wasn't like a place that they were familiar with. It wasn't like their old grandma's farmhouse or whatever that they ended up in. And oh my God, this is grandma's house.
I know.
Or anything like that. Like, so it doesn't make sense to me where this construct came from in terms of Steph and the whole plot to get Joseph trapped there to stop him from doing blah, 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 or blah, 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 whatever. Like, I imagine a counterpoint to this movie, Gerald, like a counter piece to this movie would be the Steph point of view, where maybe she's constantly going through this loop over and over again to try to save her mom, although going about it in the weirdest way by shooting at her and like attacking her and like trying to kill her. The mom immediately recognizes that it's Steph, even though that she's very clearly older, like much older. So like she very clearly recognizes. So why not, if you're Steph, okay, if you're Steph and you got this whole plan, I want to kill Uncle Joe, why not just mask off, walk up to the front door, be like, yo, mom, it's me, I'm all grown up. Like, I don't.
Yeah, here's what's going on. Yeah. And why was she brawling with her mom too? I don't. There's a lot of head scratching.
So many of these different things that just don't make sense in this little. It's like this is part one of like a 4-part time loop anthology
as a miniseries.
In this
as a
universe
miniseries,
or something.
yeah. Let's flesh it out as a miniseries or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to watch it.
It's like we made about 1,000 different metaphors for this. The bread, the crock pot, like you said, the braised short ribs, whatever it is, it's underdone, it's undercooked, it's underbaked. Put this baby back in the oven and let it cook, let it finish.
Yeah, man. Old man Brad. Thanks for shooting the patron suggestion to us, Brad. So it's a 6 for me and a 4
Thanks for
for
this
Nick.
horror suggestion. This great
Which is
horror movie suggested for us.
5 out of 10 from the P's on Things Will Be Different. Sorry we didn't like it more, buddy. I think it's a great concept, and it was interesting, and obviously gave us a lot to talk about.
If for some reason you've listened
could've
all
done
the
so
way
much
to the
more
end
with
of
it.
this but haven't seen the movie and like listened to all the spoilers and stuff, if you're somebody who likes this kind of weird, heady, time travel-y, dimension travel-y, like timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly kind of stuff where you got to get into it and try to kind of like think about it a lot, or like a movie that's going to make you use your noodle a little bit, like I would still recommend it even with my score. It's so flawed from a script perspective for me that it just literally it just doesn't work. But I would still check it out if you're into that kind of movie.
You know what I just thought of? You know who would love this? Christopher Nolan. He's always fucking with time.
Give me the Nolan. Give me the
pick.
Nolan remake of this. The Nolan
All
remake of this. See, the Nolan remake of this would have been different. It's funny to talk about it too. Spoilers for the movie draft coming up, but like, obviously, we know a Christopher Nolan movie that's very popular came out in 2010. But like,
we didn't draft that.
Imagine this movie. If Nolan made it, the first 2 hours of it would just be Nolan explaining how the time loop works over and over again.
Right. When you wouldn't be able to hear the people saying it either. Okay, so let's talk about single location movies. We're going to do our Mount Rushmore this week, guys. So obviously, Things Will Be Different was set in this farmhouse, countryside, pretty much. I mean, with the exception of maybe 5 minutes, the whole movie takes place there.
It's set at the same property the whole time, except for the little diner scene.
Yeah, they have that little shed, that farm that they go, or barn that they go to as well. But yeah. I want to thank producer Dan, who's actually here right now, but he told me, he said, why don't you do single locations? Because I didn't know what Mount Rushmore to do for this movie because I'd never seen it, didn't know a lot about it. So we're going to do our favorite single location films. Now, I rated this movie higher, Nick, which has happened every single
so it's going to happen it's the worst conceit I possibly could have come up for picking who does this first, because you're going to go first every time.
Because this is crazy. So we're going to put the Mount Rushmore. We're going to put 4 films. We're going to go back and forth, 2 from me, 2 from Nick, and it's going to make up what we think encapsulates single location movies. And I'm going to start with, I think, one of 2 no-brainers in this category. We'll see if you have the other one, but I'm going to say, let me see. I'm going to say 1957's 12 Angry Men.
I mean, yeah, this has got to be number 1 with a bullet on this list. Yeah. No matter what, this has to be.
Good, yeah. So that one kicks us off on Lincoln's face, or whoever that is over there. On I'm a patriot, sir. 12 Angry Men. What do you got for the Mount Rushmore single location?
Take this, Lincoln. I'm gonna go. Oh man, I'm so torn between these next 2. I know you'll probably pick the other one if I don't pick the one though.
Don't put that pressure on me.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna go with a movie that defined me and my youth and kind of defined like my whole generation, as it were. It's Kevin Smith's 1994 black and white comedy Clerks. Basically takes place it takes place in the same store plaza. I mean, most of it's in the Quick Stop, but then you do have a little bit of it in the video store and like on the roof and stuff like that. But again, generally the very, very same location. I mean, absolute masterpiece, classic of the genre, has to be part of it.
Nailed it. That was the other no-brainer for me, so I'm completely happy with that. So 12 Angry Men, Clerks. All right, so I'm going to let you help me with this next pick because I want it to be horror representation. Not only that, I want it to be Stephen King representation. I think the 2 that are eligible, that either one of them could go there and I'd be happy, would be The Shining, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining with Jack Nicholson, or Misery from 1990 with Kathy Bates. I think both of those, well, The Shining is a pillar of the horror kind of lore,
right?
That really just harnesses like madness, like just going mad. Jack Nicholson, one of the best performances of his career. Shelley Duvall, same thing. And then you have Misery. It's a feeling of being trapped. It's got great commentary on celebrity and now we have social media and we're basically addicted to things online, which was not the case in 1990, but they used the things that were there, like books and these characters and the celebrity that this author had. I want it to be one of those 2, obviously not both. So what would you vote for there, The Shining or Misery?
So I've never seen Misery. But
interesting.
Here's my caveat for The Shining and why I don't think it necessarily qualifies for this.
Oh.
I know it all takes place at the Overlook Hotel for the most part, but think of how big the Overlook is, how many different rooms and places are there in that hotel.
So
it doesn't feel like a single location movie.
That's fine.
If you know what I mean. Like, it's not
I get what you're saying.
It is because
it's a
it takes
huge
place.
set.
It's such a massive place. You've got the maze, you've got like the freezers, you've got like the big studies, and you've got like there's so much, the hallways, all that stuff. There's so much in that movie. I don't necessarily feel like it does qualify for, but it doesn't qualify. I think there's better examples of it, and I think you'd have to be more of the expert on it than I would be because I've never seen Misery. But Misery takes place mostly at like Kathy Bates's cabin or something.
It's her house, yeah. Well, the beginning of the film, like the first maybe 15 minutes is not there because he's, doing his press tour. And
but the rest
book
of it
signing. But then once his car wrecks, basically the rest of the movie's at her house.
Right, yeah. If you're gonna give me the lean on that one, I would say Misery only because probably once he's there, like you said, feels more trapped. It feels like a single location because it is just that one place.
Wild card.
Ooh.
What about Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse?
Lighthouse would be interesting. Is Lighthouse too new though?
How long have we been on this rock? You know what I mean? All right, I'll do Misery. That's going to be the horror. I know you're not going to pick a horror, so that'll be the horror representation. That'll be the Stephen King representation. So far we got 12 Angry Men, Clerks, and Misery. Do you have a definitive fourth, or you want to talk it out here? We're going to put it on FDR's face or whoever's up there. Teddy Roosevelt. I don't know. Who is it?
Oh, my God.
Oh, God. Yeah. That's the fourth one, buddy. Throw it on Teddy's face, man. What do you got?
Stop saying it like that. Jesus.
I'm a patriot.
So,
man.
It's got to be.
Oh, does it?
Aside from a couple small little bits and pieces, it mostly takes place all in a single warehouse. It also happens to be the first film, the directorial debut of one Quentin Tarantino, Gerald as Reservoir Dogs. Fucking masterpiece of the crime genre. Absolute masterpiece of the crime genre. All takes place in, like I said, aside from you got the opening diner and then the little flashback bits, but the main action of that entire film all takes place inside that warehouse.
All right. So Reservoir Dogs I love. I'm not going to necessarily argue it, but let me just ask you, what about Clue? You ever seen Clue?
I've never seen Clue, no.
All right. I think you got to go.
Once again, this game is limited by how few movies I've seen.
No, I think we did good. I think we did good there. The other one that I thought almost for sure, well, first of all, I think you've seen this. I hope you have. But I thought almost for sure would end up on the Rushmore. I didn't know which one of us would end up saying it, was The Breakfast Club.
I've never seen it.
That. Oh, okay. Well, that's why you didn't say it then. But that's one of the definitive John Hughes classics.
Name an 80s movie that everybody loves. I've never seen it, or I saw it when I was an adult, and I was like, well, why do people like this?
We got to get that Patreon series going more where we get the because we didn't tell anybody yet. We're going to do the thing, the movie swap. So you're going to give me a movie that I've never seen that you love, and I'm going to give you one that I love that you've never seen, and we're going to swap and then come together and talk about them. But we haven't done it yet, but you've given me some ideas knowing that you haven't seen Misery or The Breakfast Club. So that's a possibility. But there you go.
Just
so our Mount
Rushmore.
Rushmore.
Patrons for me to shit all over every 80s movie that you grew up with and love. Because when you watch them outside of the 80s without nostalgia glasses on for the first time, they do not hold up by and large for the most part.
I disagree, sir. You love Stand By Me. That came out the same year as Breakfast Club. You're good.
Yeah, I do. I adore that movie. That movie's a masterpiece. But I also grew up watching that movie. It's one of my top family films, Gerald. You'll remember. I watched that film for the first time when I was like 10.
I'll grow up watching you. All right, watch that tone.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap up our Mount. Let's
I had
remind
to be
everybody.
like maybe
What was
13
our
or 14 the first time I saw that movie. Like I was really young. I was probably like a preteen, like early teen, like right around the same age as the characters of that movie. That's why it resonates so much with me because I was literally that age the first time I watched lard ass Logan have a total barf-a-rama at the pie eating contest. Barfed all over Mayor Grundy's wife's tits.
You damn straight, brother. Let's see. That castor oil will get you every single time. Over on Lincoln's face, we got 12 Angry Men. On Washington's face, we have Clerks. On who else is up there? Andrew Johnson. Who the hell is on there? Rushmore? I really don't know.
Lincoln.
Link. Oh, did I say Lincoln
Washington.
already? Yeah, I said him already. Roosevelt. Jefferson. That's him.
Roosevelt.
So Jefferson. Who do we say for Jefferson? Misery. And then what did you put? What was the last one? This is the worst segment. Dan's going to have some work to do, although he's probably going to keep all this in. Reservoir Dogs. There you go. That's the Mount Rushmore of single location movies. And Nick, thank you for the discussion on things will be
Mr.
different.
Pink
Now,
sounds kind of like Mr. Pussy.
Now, next week, we will be back to wrap up October with another patron-selected, I hope, actual horror movie. Jason, patron extraordinaire, pitched us a movie called Lose, L-U-Z, from 2018. I have never seen it. Frankly, I had never heard of it prior to
this
drawing
one,
it last
the
week.
synopsis of this one has a demon in it, so it's already 10 times more of a horror movie than this one was, Brad.
It's not set in a poignant farmhouse with siblings.
It might be. You don't know.
After, yeah, I don't know.
There could be a farmhouse in there.
Brad, we love you, man. We're just messing with you. But do me a favor. Next October, throw us a horror movie, okay? I mean, I know you've been watching them over there. So Lose will be the review next week, and then we will get back out to the cinema the first week of November. I have no fucking idea what we're going to see. Does anybody have the spreadsheet open? Is producer Dan available? I can't do this by myself. Let's see. Yeah, let's take a look.
We got
here.
Gladiator 2, Electric Boogaloo coming.
So the first November review will be for Conclave, the new Edward Berger religious drama about the replacement of the Pope. You said you saw that trailer when you went to see something recently, so.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, that looks really really good. It has
Ray Fiennes and Stanley Tucci.
Voldemort in it.
Yeah, John Lithgow, a lot of great.
You know what? I'm shocked. I'm really shocked that the Florence Pugh Andrew Garfield movie is not on our schedule.
I just saw it with my wife though.
You
do you want me to tell you
did
what I
not
thought about it or
put
not?
a Florence Pugh movie on our list.
Dude, do you want me to tell you?
I want you to tell me anything about it because I want to go see it. So I don't want
I'm
you
not
to
going to tell you
anything
anything about it. I mean, it's not about the movie necessarily, but I know that you were a huge fan of Past Lives last year or a couple years ago. Was it last year? It was last year, right?
Yep. That was both of our number one movies of the year, Gerald.
It was, yeah. So you're talking about We Live in Time, by the way, guys, is what he's talking about. New A24 kind of romantic drama or whatever. So I'm not going to tell you anything about the plot of the movie, but I will just say that it's very Past Lives-esque, and it centers around food and cuisine. And when I saw it, I was like, man, Nick has got to see this.
These are, I mean, again, the list, Gerald makes the list for the show.
But, I mean,
He's
it's
got
not Dune 2.
a movie with Florence Pugh in it. Now, granted,
Yeah,
Florence
she's good.
Pugh was also in Dune 2, so.
By the way, she's looks good in it. We Live in Time.
It's Florence Pugh. Come on,
I'm
of
still
course
in
she
that
does.
time. I haven't left
It's
the
got
time.
food in it. It's got Andrew Garfield in it, who I love. And he's like, no, we don't want to put that on the schedule. Let's put,
mean,
I
what do you
can't even
want me to
hate
do?
you, though, because all this stuff coming up. Well, I don't know what's Amelia Perez? You told me about it before. I said
It's
I
a
don't know what that is
musical.
before, and then you said
It's a
what
musical
it was,
with
and I was like,
Selena
okay.
Gomez that's getting a ton of
Oh,
Oscar
yeah,
buzz,
okay.
and it's going to
Yep.
be on Netflix, so we'll give that one a shot. We
We
got
got
our movie draft
Conclave.
coming up with Jay Ledbetter. That'll be great.
Yeah, we got Gladiator 2, Electric Boogaloo coming up.
Yeah, man. Night Bitch is coming up. Yeah,
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu to end the year. I don't know if we'll be able to squeeze Wicked Part 1 in there, but that's coming out in Thanksgiving, I think. So.
Yeah, that's coming out November 2. Yeah, Patreon. We've got Patreon holiday movie coming up at the end of the year. Brad's gonna pick a holiday horror movie, and that's when we're gonna get the horror movie you watch.
It's gonna be patrons pick a holiday movie, and Brad's gonna find the one Labor Day film and throw it at us. Oh my God, Brad, we love you. Everyone listening, we love you. Nick, thanks for discussing this film with me. And man, I feel like doing this podcast with you. I've been stuck in this time loop.
Yeah, another 90-minute episode. You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
One of these loops, you're gonna give something higher than a 6. I'm gonna make it happen. I got to keep trying. Keep trying.
But I just did. I gave Saturday Night a 7 last week.
Oh, that's true. So I won. I completed the loop. Nick, I'll see you next week, brother, and we'll discuss Lose from 2018. Thank you, patrons, for the submissions for October. Nick, take care of yourself, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
I'm disappointed in your species.